President Trump?
Well, I want to thank you all, and I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity, very simple. And if you don't, as an example,
Well, I think that former President Trump is asking the Supreme Court to embrace a pretty extraordinary argument, which is that the president is absolutely immune from ever being criminally prosecuted, even long after the conclusion of a presidential term, if the conduct at issue happened during a presidency with some plausible connection to the office of the president. And it's not an argument or a claim that the Supreme Court has ever adopted, and I don't think it's a claim with much support in American history or constitutional structure, but the fact that they took the case, to my mind, sends a signal that they are at least considering seriously this argument, and so there is at least a non-zero chance that some number of justices might sign on to this, I think, quite extraordinary argument that Trump is making.
An indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
But, it may just be that the court is going to agree with the D.C. Circuit substantively, but thinks an important question like this is one that the Supreme Court, the apex court in our system, should answer rather than just letting a lower court opinion stand. We don't really know, but it may be that there are some justices who are interested in potentially embracing some version of Trump's argument. Solution, I think that embracing an absolute immunity argument, or any kind of even a qualified immunity argument from criminal prosecution, where we've never had such a rule in our history, would be an enormous win for former President Trump, and enormously problematic from the perspective of a healthy balance of power, a properly constrained and accountable president. I mean, it would be creating a new kind of insulation from the ordinary operation of law that former presidents would enjoy that other officials do not.
Be advised, Capitol Police One advised they're trying to breach and get into the Capitol.
I mean, I think that we all agree that the presidency is a powerful office, and by design, it is a powerful office, but that is in no way to suggest that it is an office that should not be subject to constraints and checks on the awesome power that the president exercises by virtue of the office. And so regardless, but I do think that it's not really an overstatement to suggest that the kind of stakes for constitutional democracy are extraordinarily high here.
Sure, we've done some things wrong in this administration. And the top man always takes the responsibility, and I've never ducked it, because only if you've been in the deepest valley.
There's the United States versus Nixon tapes case from 1974, in which President Nixon made arguments that sound very much like many of the arguments that Trump is making right now. Nixon basically argued he couldn't be required to turn over Oval Office audio recordings to the special prosecutor investigating the Watergate break-in and cover-up. And the Supreme Court, in 2.5 weeks, an incredibly accelerated timetable, unanimously rejected Nixon's argument that the president essentially could never be compelled to produce documents in conjunction with a pending criminal case.
His downfall, now a matter for historians, political scientists, and psychologists to piece together.
No matter where in America you live, this isn't about states' rights, it's about women's rights. I'm a capitalist. I don't care if you make $1 billion, just pay your taxes. I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified.
If former President Trump prevails in the election, then he will presumably dismiss the special counsel and order the charges against him thrown out. The president can do that. I mean, the norms are very strong that the president doesn't, in the modern era, sort of post-Watergate, interfere with the ordinary proceedings of the Justice Department, in particular in a criminal case. But there is nothing formally prohibiting the president from doing that, and I fully expect that he would if elected. I think that it can absolutely do that and dispose of this case, which it's had the briefs on for 7 weeks now. It's a long time to have these briefs. It has a fully reasoned lower court opinion and trial court opinion. So to my mind, there's no reason they couldn't resolve this case in a couple of weeks. And if that happens, then a trial in, late July or August, I think is a real possibility.
The argument that Donald Trump is making is that a president should never be prosecuted for his official acts as president of the United States. Because if a president were prosecuted for his official acts, then he would be unwilling to take the risk that he needs to defend the country in times of war or to make the hard decisions that a president needs to make in office.
But if this didn't work out, if I wasn't given immunity, then other presidents, when we talked about today, President Obama with the drone strikes, which were very bad, they were mistakes, terrible mistakes. You really can't put a president in that position. So I think.
Remember that what is at stake here is whether the criminal statutes passed by the Congress can be applied by a federal court to the president of the United States, or whether the president of the United States is above the law. So we have political divisions in this country between conservatives and liberals and Democrats and Republicans. Well, we also have three branches of government. And I don't believe that the Supreme Court of the United States, one of those branches, is going to sign off an interpretation of the Constitution that essentially says the president can do anything he wants, regardless of how the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution or the statutes, including the criminal statutes in the United States. That whether they give Donald Trump some qualified immunity and some wiggle room here to use Article 2 power to try to wiggle out of this case, that's what remains to be seen.
And the other thing is I did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trump,
You just used the word.
Not. This is an essential trial for our history, and that Americans should be able to watch, listen to the evidence, and regardless of what the jury decides, decide for themselves in November whether they want to put this man back in the White House.